Good morning, League fans. It is Thursday, the 15th of May, and normally we would not have an episode of this show right now because we've just had Costo's wonderful program, Bush Beat, and coming up just before the hour, it's kickoff in the second Women's State of Origin game. So normally we'd be playing you some music now with no footy talk, give you a little bit of a break. However, yesterday there was a media briefing hosted by the RFL, and that was to discuss brain health, but that spilled over a lot into refereeing and match review. So there was an embargo on everything that came from that media conference until 10 a.m. today, UK time. So that's why we're going to squeeze in a program, if necessary, right up to kickoff in the State of Origin game. Now, the birthdays, quickly. Scott Tronk, 60 today. One of my favourite players back in the day, Scott Tronk. Bo Scott, who's bodyguard for many talented players on the field, 41 today, Bo Scott. Who else have we got? Corey Thompson, who played on both sides of the globe. He's 35 today. James Meadows from the Broncos formerly and now at Bradford. Happy birthday to Jimmy Meadows. He is just 26 today. Okay, let's go straight into the first audio grab. And this is Paul Cullen, the chairman of the Match Review panel, talking about specifically in regard to Magic Weekend and Liam Knight and Lewis Murphy, how just because they don't take action over players who are sanctioned at the time doesn't mean they disagreed with the match officials. We're going to squeeze it as much as we can before kick-off in Origin.
Previously, Match Review had no access to a sin bin sufficient or a send-off sufficient being a part of our grading process. So we look at those two incidents from what's the game, Phil, sorry?
So the weekend it will be
Magic,
look at the Magic.
St Helens versus Hull. We have a sin bin.
That's St Helens Leeds.
St Helens Leeds, where we have the sin bin for the high jump.
Yeah.
Referee and video referee made the decision to sin bin the player. Monday morning, we agreed with that and went sin bin sufficient. The communication on that, I can understand, probably needs to be a little bit more clearer. So when we looked at that incident, we actually agreed with match officials. There was contact with the head. Player had left the floor. We in our facility on a Monday morning noted that the player jumped, made contact with the outside of a leg on the shoulder, bounced off the shoulder, made some contact there, so therefore misconduct. Player bangs his head on the floor. Referee, video referee, match view panel all agree it's misconduct. We went sin bin sufficient because we've had the facility on a Monday morning to weigh that up and assess, is that a legitimate jump? We thought yes it was. Is it indirect? Yes it was, because it clearly in our view bounced off the shoulder, did make contact with the head. So the referee and the video referee haven't made a mistake. There's contact with the head. They're within their rights to act accordingly. They thought it was worth a sin bin. We agreed, sin bin sufficient. When that comes through the process, it's read as there's a disparity between match officials and match review. However, there isn't. We all agree it's misconduct of some description. We were quite happy that it stayed at sin bin sufficient. We didn't think it needed a grade A, a grade B, a grade C, a grade D or a grade E adding to that sanction that the player had already received. And then the send-off at Magic, which was the Liam Knight send-off, we thought player flies out the line recklessly. He makes contact indirectly because we think he's taken the vast majority of the force through the body. There is, we thought, contact with the head, albeit slight. Why? Because the player leg drives into the next tackle, carries on running. He then gets up off his own accord, gets involved in a little bit of a melee, and the medical staff leave him on the field. So we went send-off sufficient. When that comes through all the elements and angles of reports and into the media, it then transpires that we have not agreed with match officials, which is not the case. We agree with match officials. There was contact with the head. We didn't like the way Liam Knight recklessly flew out the line. And if you do make contact with someone's head, you open yourselves up to match officials, as in referee and video referee, and then match review on a Monday morning.
It's not an old chestnut, it's more a new chestnut. Why don't referees allow for accidents on the field? Why must someone always be responsible? Here's Phil Bentham answering that one.
The only reason, John, is obviously, I was handed this framework on day one starting in the job, is that there has to be a responsibility on somebody within those challenges. And it was decided that the responsibility is on the tackler. Now, the Murphy one is slightly different because it's a dangerous contact. It's not making a tackle. It doesn't really fit the framework. That's more about the way that he goes in to the challenge. And that's around duty of care, which we've always done. I think it's probably also worth pointing out that, the referees were handed this framework and they were really, really uncomfortable when they were given the framework. They would love to referee like the 1990s, where the send-offs and sin bins absolutely jump out the screen at you. We're not in that position. We have to protect the players, in the climate that we're in now. And, that's why things have changed. You're right, though, that we need to look at whether our mitigations are right. And, are we applying the right mitigations that protect the players, but also protect the sport a little bit in terms of the entertainment? And we are open to look.
Here's the interesting thing, though. In the next breath, to Phil Bentham saying there are no accidents on the field in the eyes of referees, Paul Cullen, who's the chairman of the Match Review Committee, he made a reference to accidents when looking at these incidents on the Monday. And this is what Paul Cullen had to say when he was challenged on this apparent disconnect.
So it's a really good point, John. I'll go back to two incidents in that last game, the Owen Trout one. It's really, really important, I think. And again, you're right, language and communications are very, very important here. So earlier on, before Owen Trout makes contact with Matt Duffy, issue placed on report, we eventually charge at grade C. A few moments before, Owen Trout puts a really, really solid and forceful shot tackle on Aaron Lindop, who then spins out of that tackle because of the nature of the force of it, and then clashes heads with Ben McNamara. We didn't charge at all. There was no penalty given in the game. Nobody sin bin, nobody sent off. We bring that in on a Monday morning because we review every single incident, every tackle, all 450 to 500 contacts in a game. We review in depth across the weekend, and we bring those sightings in on a Monday morning. And we went, no charge. Now, I'll use that language, John, as in the contact with Ben McNamara's head with Aaron Lindop as he spins out of the tackle. We class that as accidental because it was beyond Ben McNamara's control. He's coming into a tackle second man. Solid shot from Owen Trout. The player spins, and the tackle that Ben McNamara was going to make in a fraction of a second changed in front of his eyes, and two men clashed heads. We would class that as an accident, as I think match officials did on the day. Ben McNamara is not responsible for that head contact, and neither is Aaron Lindop. Owen Trout, arguably one of the best tackles I've seen all season so far. Hit him that hard, he knocked him backwards and spun him 360, and then he clashed heads. So, again, we have to be all very, very careful on the language that we use. We would use Ben McNamara and Alan Lindop as accidental contact, no penalty, not our business, but certainly not going to be a sin bin send-off sufficient if match officials had done it, and certainly not an A, B, C, D, E in the cold light of day on a Monday morning.
Okay, here's where things get pretty meaty because we're talking about games taking too long, the video referee taking too long, the captain's challenge, and here's where Phil Bentham reveals a number of trial procedures that are intended to lessen these delays. And the big one in here is a shot clock on goal kickers, which already exists in rugby union. But he goes through a lot of stuff here, so I'm just going to let Phil Bentham talk. We've got the Women's State of Origin coming up. We've got a lot to squeeze into the next few minutes.
Sometimes we are taking too long and looking at the same angle too many times. There's several things we're looking at. We're looking at some improvements in the way that we get replays from Sky. We've been working at Wilmslow and using what's called the ref box, where at the moment the referee chooses and selects their own replays. We feel that we were quicker under the system that I used when I was video refereeing, whereby the director The directors obviously really clued up on which could potentially be the best angle. We did that at Magic. I felt our decision making at Magic was a lot quicker, a lot more robust. So we're going to trial that this weekend. So you'll see that the video ref will be going through the director rather than controlling and looking at their own replays on the ref box. So that's something we're going to trial this weekend. We've got a couple of other ideas in terms of the length of the game. I think that the first half last week in that semi-final was 55 minutes, which can take a lot of interest away when people are watching it. And we're looking at things as well as a video referee. So one of the things that will be going to the Laws Committee is a shot clock on goal kicks, just to try and speed that up a little bit. Rugby Union brought it in, and it's been really successful within the game, and they're done and dusted with a kick within 1 minute. We stop the clock after 1:20, but most kickers are now taking up to 2 minutes, and that kind of kills the atmosphere a little bit. So whilst I accept that the video referees on occasion, particularly on an easy call, don't need to look at as many angles, we can also try and improve the length of the game in other aspects as well.
The ever-observant Trevor Hunt made the... Well, he's observant, so it makes sense that he would make an observation. The observation is that during the Challenge Cup, with a different sponsor or no sponsor for the video referee, the decisions seemed quicker. We didn't have this tick, 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 tick before a decision on a try was handed down. And Phil Bentham's answer to this was nothing if not honest.
There might be a commercial aspect to that I'll need to speak to them, Trev. Okay. I'm sure that company is paid for that particular time that their image is on the screen, but take your points on it, yeah. Whether we could cut it down by 3 or 4 ticks, I'm not sure.
We're counting down to kick-off in the Women's State of Origin. We're still trying to squeeze in as much as we can from yesterday's Brain Health Media briefing, which was under embargo till 10 a.m. today. Now, this is Phil Bentham and also Paul Cullen discussing the first few months of the Captain's Challenge, the use of that in Super League.
Phil, was there another point in terms of in that debrief on, and it was fascinating listening to it, the Captain's Challenge, which is a brilliant concept. I love it. I think everyone's does. But is the numbers? It's a 66% unsuccessful challenge.
It is. So if we look at an average challenge of 2 minutes, based on that, that's 132 minutes we've had where the referees actually got the decision right in the first place. That's then been challenged by the players.
Yes.
So, that's another time-saving one. If the players could just pick the decisions that we get wrong, that would be perfect. Everybody all around. But yeah, that's another aspect. That's something new though, and we're reviewing that at the end of the year. And the players are getting better. They're choosing the better incidents to challenge.
Yeah.
It was always going to be a process of seeing how that works out.
Yeah. But once they've removed the emotion of the ball being ripped out, or they've lost it, etc., etc.
That's right.
Yeah. That adds to the length of the game, clearly, doesn't it? Obviously, without a doubt. Yeah. It's just a fascinating point.